Three. Mike Harris back with What in the Law podcast. Quite a few episodes ago, I said I wanted to get guests to explain different areas of the law because, as I like to say, there's a lot of different things, and it's good to have someone in each area. So today I have Joel Ryan, who is a child advocate. Say hi, Joel.
Hey guys, glad to be here. It's fun to join you guys.
So, in a nutshell, to start out, what is it that you do as a child advocate? Who do you work for? How does this work?
Well, yeah, thanks for asking that. I'm glad. First of all, I'm glad to be on this podcast. I know you probably get a combination of lawyer wannabes, and average people have questions. I'm a non-traditional lawyer. I went to law school at American University, and in DC, and but I didn't think I would practice law in the traditional sense. So I thought I would go into advocacy and lobbying. And so what I do at our organization, we represent the Head Start providers in the state of Washington. We lobby at our state capitol on their behalf, as well as they're going to DC and doing lobbying work. So it's a little bit different. I mean, most of the work that I do is a combination of legislative advocacy and organizing, and regulatory issues that come up, administrative law. And where the interesting, probably for some of your listeners, might be, and we can get into that, is some of the First Amendment issues. Is also a big part of the work that I do, because we're talking about political speech. And so that's a ton of the work. But I am not the person you come to if you have family court issues, or you want me to look at a contract. I don't go to court. My court is the court of public opinion, as well as with policymakers. So that's the work that I do leading this nonprofit.
So I keep hearing the word lobbyist is like this bad word, and people doing these special interests to help people and hurt the country. What is it? Why do we hear these things about lobbyists from politicians, and then what is the reality kind of compared to what we hear from politicians sometimes?
Well, I think lobbyists serve an important purpose because they're a resource for members of Congress, for state lawmakers, for other policymakers and executive branch. So they're there to provide, good information, and also to make sure that their clients are well represented. In my case, I feel really good about the work we do because we're working on behalf of the public interest. In the case of Head Start providers, I'm working to make sure that more kids have access to high quality early education, and that they have opportunities to go to school and receive childcare, so so their parents can go to work, or special ed services in the schools, or housing, or other human services. So I feel really good about the work we do. We're not in the same position as, say, a lobbyist from a private sector industry who can donate a lot of money or contribute to other ways of contributing to campaigns. Our power is the stories that we tell, the research that we have about the return on investment of early childhood education, and the power of people to raise their voices, which I spend a lot of time teaching people how to do that, how to effectively testify at state capitals, how to meet with their lawmakers in person, or to have them come out and see the work they're doing every day. So it is a little bit different. Yes, lobbyists get a bad name, but not all lobbyists are created equal. And so I feel really good about the work we do. We're a lobbyist in the public interest.
Now, you talked about Head Start, and that's a more or less common organization, I guess, but maybe some people don't know exactly what that is. Frankly, I'm not even sure I know everything it is. So, what exactly is Head Start?
So Head Start it's an early childhood program for very low income families, 0 to 5. So these are families that are living below the poverty level. In the state of Colorado, you might think probably under 25,000 for a family of 4. So it would be very difficult whether you're living in Washington State or in Colorado Springs to be able to survive on that. And so the goal is, can you make sure that all children who are entering kindergarten in the K-12 system are ready for school? Because what often happens is if they're not ready, it is very difficult to catch up. And that gap continues to grow as those kids continue, move into the middle school years and high school. The gap between more middle class peers and kids that might be eligible for Head Start or very low income grows. And so our job is to make sure that everybody starts school ready to learn, prepared, and hopefully, set up for a good academic future. And we have a lot of studies that have been done of the Head Start program that demonstrate its effectiveness in kids not having to repeat grades, not being involved, by the way, in the criminal justice system, juvenile delinquency, ending up in CPS, and ultimately more people graduating high school and college. There was a Brookings study that just came out, and also from UCLA, that looked at years later what happened to Head Start kids. And they found pretty amazingly a reduction in people utilizing public benefits, college attendance and completion, just a host of really positive indicators. So I do things like this, Michael. I come on podcasts and I'm an evangelist for programs like Head Start, and that's the work that we do to tell that story. But it's been around since the 60s. It's an anti-poverty program from the Lyndon Johnson era of the war on poverty. I think what also is unique about it, if people are sort of thinking about access to affordable childcare, we work quite a bit with parents. So the goal is, can we try to help parents find employment, get them connect back up with school, and give them strategies to be, better parents at home, try to partner with them so they can work with their kids, especially at that early age.
So let's say you're a parent with and you want to get your child into some of these programs. How do they get their kid into Head Start, and what kind of things will Head Start specifically do for their kid?
Yeah, so if you're in, let's say you're in the state of Colorado and listening to this, there's probably a Department of Early Learning, or there might be a child care aware agency that will be able to let you know of where Head Start providers are. Head Start providers are all across Colorado. They're all across, of course, Washington, across the country. And so they're often the state will have listings for people to be able to find Head Start. Now, Head Start is hard to get into, again, because you have to be very low income. You have to be homeless based on the McKinney-Vento definition. One of the latest changes is if there's a family receiving SNAP or food stamp benefits, they are also categorically eligible for Head Start. So there are a myriad of ways of getting in, but sort of the bottom line is you have to be very low income. What Head Start provides is full day care for your kid, but also we do health screenings. We provide nutritious meals during the day. We make sure that people are hooked up to medical homes, so going to the dentist and the doctor. Some families, especially very low income, don't have great access because they're relying on in the state's Medicaid program. I'm not sure what that is in Colorado, but it can often be hard to access services. And then we do a ton of casework where family support workers are working directly with parents to help them identify emergency food assistance, housing, a variety of other job training services. So it's a multifaceted approach, holistic approach to learning. But again, the ultimate goal is high quality, affordable, in this case, free early learning services for very low income families to get these kids ready for kindergarten.
And where do you come in? Where do you start working with Head Start, and is it just lobbying, or are there other things that you're doing?
Well, it's primarily lobbying. I mean, I started a long time ago doing this. I actually wrote my college thesis on the survival of Head Start, and then I worked for a Head Start program in Boston. I'm originally from Boston, and I've been doing this a while. There is a lot of lobbying that I do. But a lot of the work I do is like speaking to podcasts and speaking to other people about the benefits of programs like Head Start. Um, but I think the other thing is I like to look at myself as a teacher, and I try to work with the parents that have kids in the Head Start program to teach them to advocate. That's the stuff that I really enjoy the most, and probably where I put a lot of my legal training actually, because trying to help parents understand how to look at issues from various standpoints and perspectives, how to navigate the system, are a lot of the things they teach you in law school, and how to think about various problems. So most of my work, well, it's sort of straight up lobbying. A lot of it also is teaching, and that's also where where my law degree comes in quite a bit.
So, can you give an example of like a lobbying kind of thing? Like, what do you do? Do you like call up congressman and then go over to her office and talk to her, or is it more of a talking to groups of people? Like, what kind of things do you do with the lobby?
Well, there are a few things. I mean, definitely during the pandemic, we did a lot of virtual meetings, but we do a lot of meetings with lawmakers. Yeah, we definitely do a lot of meetings with lawmakers. I think for people who are listening to your podcast, what I think is important to know is it's really about relationship building, and especially with the legislative staff. So if you're working with members of Congress or your U.S. senators on a particular issue, I don't mean there are probably people listening from all different perspectives on this, but there are staff in each of your congressional offices who work on a particular issue, that you get connected with. So a lot of times it's just meeting with them, it's educating them about the programs that we are supporting, or if there's a particular bill that we're working on. But again, the most effective thing is putting people with lived experience and voice in those meetings. So while I do a lot of meetings myself, what I do is I train parents, I train providers, I train other people to go up with me or even by themselves, to have an effective meeting with their legislators so that they're doing the lobbying, because at the end of the day that they're their constituents. And so that's what I focus mostly on.
So, if someone is maybe thinking about becoming a lawyer or they're in law school and thinking about this kind of area, how do they do that? I mean, how is it that you went from law school to being a child advocate?
Well, when I was at American, I was a very good law student, and so I had opportunities, probably like a lot of your listeners and maybe yourself as well, to be on law review and some of those things. But I turned them down in order to do work with uh, internships with policy groups and advocacy groups. So I really encourage people, if they're considering a career in this field, it's very important to try to get some experience. And so while I think it's good to test out, I worked for neighborhood legal services in DC. I did my time at various more traditional legal positions. I worked for the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. But I think one of the things that is really critical is to work for advocacy groups, so you can see what it's like. It is a different type of legal path. So you want to be sure that this is something that you'll enjoy doing. So I just think getting a lot of experience makes a big difference, and it is different working at a nonprofit. It is not the same. Right now I'm working at an office where I have water down the hall, and my coworker, hides her only granola bars that she. I mean, it is a much more limited financial apparatus to work in a nonprofit than to say at a firm, but it also is great. I mean, the rewards are wonderful, and you get to meet a lot of great people, and the work is terrific. But it's different. It's not the traditional, writing briefs or anything. Most of the writing work we do are really short. It's a lot of short emails. It's a lot of fact sheets, things like that. It's not the kind of writing you do in law school about being concise. I think makes a big difference for somebody in this kind of job. But we're not writing legal briefs. My wife's a more traditional attorney. She's a civil rights attorney at HUD. And she's on, they're constantly writing briefs or other things, and going to court or other. That's not what this is. You have to kind of, you're changing your perspective of what the job might be, but at the same time, the skills that you're learning in law school about being concise, good writing skills, thinking about issues in a complex manner, and sort of seeing all the different perspectives. All of that can really benefit somebody who's thinking of a career in nonprofit or advocacy organizing work.
Apparently, they don't make you wear a suit and tie every day.
They don't make you wear a suit and tie every day. Yeah, only when I go down to the state capitol, then I'll whip out the suit. I have no idea if I can fit into it during the pandemic, because I was at home a lot eating things that I probably shouldn't have eaten. But only time will tell in a few months when. But yeah, it is nice. You do have a lot of flexibility. I don't think it's just sort of a Seattle, Colorado thing that people are casual. I think nonprofits tend to be a little bit more casual than other places. But I also encourage people, if you're interested in this work, go to DC, right? Especially if you're new out of law school, or you're thinking you're in law school and you want to do an internship or something. I think it's a great experience to go to Washington, DC, and work for your member of Congress, work for an advocacy group, kind of get a feel of what it's like. I worked for 6 years at a national advocacy group before coming to the state of Washington. I really think that can make a huge difference in how you look at things.
Any particular projects or things that you've been working on that you would like to talk about?
Well, the biggest crisis in early learning is the same crisis that's being experienced in the K-12 system. It's being experienced in human services, and whether you're a home health aide, whatever it is the lack of pay. And we are facing a workforce crisis, as everybody knows. It doesn't matter where you are in the country. It is hard to find people and keep good people. And primarily it's about pay. And, the helping professions are traditionally underpaid. They're predominantly women and women of color. And that's led to just a giant underinvestment in these areas, whether it's people who are taking care of elderly or people with disabilities or young children or very low income children. The pandemic, I think, has both highlighted the issue, the important work of these helping professions, but also, with a very tight labor market, has highlighted the fact that we've been underpaying these professions for quite a while. So the biggest issue I've been working on right now is workforce, and making sure that we have staff to take care of kids, and that, if somebody is dropping their kid off at a child care center or a Head Start program, that they have good qualified people there taking care, warm people that care about your kids, and that the ratios are small so that they can provide a lot of individual attention. Or if you have a kid with special needs, they're getting the services that they need to be successful. So the workforce is really the biggest issue. And we've been working with members of Congress. We tried to get into the final Manchin's Schumer bill that was passed. Was primarily about climate change and some Affordable Care Act and prescription drugs. There was a big push out here with Senator Murray and I think Senator Bennett from Colorado to try to get dollars into that bill to support more childcare and more funding for Head Start, so that we could pay staff, that we could continue to expand. So that's the number one issue, is the workforce.
Any other particular things, like comparing what you do to the more traditional suit and tie law firm, that is like more, how would you compare as far as the challenges and maybe benefits as far as what you do versus
Well,
others?
yeah. Well, I think I would say what I like about the job from a legal perspective is the impact I can have. We've brought over $1 billion of new investments in the state of Washington to the early childhood system, $1 billion. And that means thousands of more kids that are low income have access to high quality early education. So that's awesome. I'd say, the thing about it is, if you are a lawyer, if you go work for a nonprofit, you have to get used to both doing the advocacy and more legal-ish policy kind of stuff, but also cutting Costco muffins at a conference. And one of the things, I have a friend of mine who we were both working in DC, and so he called the office manager and said, "Who in here can help fix my copier?" And she said, "You are the person who's going to fix your copier." So it's a different, you don't have someone to call and say, "Hey, can you do this part?" You do have to do a lot of the other jobs, just because it's just the nature of a nonprofit. Nonprofits don't have as much resources. They're dependent on grants and other things. So you might be thinking, as you're coming out of law school, "Oh, I don't have to do any of those things anymore. I can just do my law stuff." And you would be mistaken, because that's not how it works that's not how it works at a nonprofit, especially a smaller nonprofit. You really have to be willing to do some of the jobs you probably did before law school, and combine that with your new legal training.
Well,
Although
anything
I've been
else?
getting very good at cutting muffins. I'm excellent at cut. I can cut it in half. I can, I can hand out. I know how to make folders. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I've learned over the years to do. But no, Michael, I just thank you for having me on your podcast. I hope if there are some viewers out there, if they're interested in pursuing a career in this field, that they consider it. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for somebody. And I think especially when you're in law school, there's not enough people telling law students, "Hey, there are alternative paths." You don't. It's not just about courtroom or working at a big firm, or even some of the public interest jobs. Legal services or ACLU, things like that. Those kinds of jobs. Those are really important, but I don't think there's enough attention to sort of much more non-traditional sort of advocacy positions. Or quite frankly, there are other opportunities that people use their law degree to be executive directors of the Boys and Girls Club, or other places that you wouldn't necessarily think, "Hey, that person needs a law degree to do it." I just think a law degree really allows you a lot of variation, allows you a lot of different unique skills that you can bring to a lot of areas that are critically important. And I hope that at the end of the day, we have more child advocates and more people who are, advocating for kids who need that support and furthest away from opportunity out there. So that's all I would say, Michael. But I'm happy, if people want to contact me, you're welcome to send them my work contact, and I'd be happy to mentor or talk to folks.
All right. Well, how do people find you? And we'll put some links in
Yeah,
here to
well,
find you
yeah,
also, but yeah.
yeah, you can absolutely go to our website. Our website is wsaheadstartecap.com. ECAP is spelled ECEAP. So it's WSA Headstart ECEAP.com. You can go to our website. We have a number of great staff that you can connect with, but I'm certainly happy. My contact information is on that website. People are welcome to talk to me, whether you're thinking about law school, you're in law school, or maybe you're thinking of a career change and like to get into child advocacy. I'd be happy to. And if you're in Colorado, I'm happy to also connect you. I have a lot of connections in Colorado to child advocacy organizations that I can connect you with as well. So I'm happy to do that.
Okay, well, wonderful. Well, we'll definitely post those links. And I think this was a really, really good introduction to child advocacy and lobbying and alternative ways to practice law. So thank
Yeah.
you very much, Joel, and hope that people will enjoy this, and maybe some other lawyers will want to come on and explain some things. Maybe your wife.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
so I'll see you next time on What in the Law podcast.